Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. Very excited for today's show. I've got Randy Langenderfer here with us today. And so, Randy, how you doing?
Hey, Brian, it's great to see you again. Thanks so much for the invitation to be on your show.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
I was several years ago, but pleasure to be
Yeah.
back.
Happy to have you back. I like it better when we get repeat guests, because we can talk about what was happening then versus what was happening now. And, always good to see familiar faces too. So,
Feel the same way.
yeah. So, how the heck are you?
I'm doing good. So just for your listeners, Randy Langenderfer for Houston, Texas. Been in the multifamily space for about 11 years now, since 2014. Started a passive portfolio, became an active general partner in 2018. Mid 23, about May of 23, I left the corporate world to do this full time and recently started a coaching program. And
Awesome.
I'm having a lot of fun in life, Brian.
Yeah, sounds great. A lot of parallels to my own trajectory, except I think you started sooner with passive investing than I did. But why don't we actually talk about that? So you said you started 2014. So let's rewind,
Yeah.
kind of set the stage for that 2014. What were you doing, work, family life,
Well, that's good
etc.
stuff.
And what got you to start passively investing?
So what got me involved is at the time I was working, I was living in the Cleveland, Ohio market. I was working for
Mhm.
a private equity firm
Okay.
and just coming out of the 2008, 2009 recession. And things weren't improving enough in the manufacturing biz. I was just really concerned about losing my job. And so I had one of those aha moments where I woke up and said, Randy, you need to do something different and find an income stream for yourself.
Yeah.
And I started looking around at, buying a franchise or a small business
Hmm.
and basically landed on single family flips.
Okay.
Started with a brother-in-law of mine who had attended Armando Montelegro's flipping school and asked
Okay.
me to come alongside him. So I
That's
became,
even a bigger mouthful than your last name. Just got to throw that out there.
I had to practice
Yeah.
that one myself and listen to it. But he was one of the late night infomercial guys
Hmm.
flipping houses. And my brother-in-law bought into that
Hmm.
process and came to me and said, we got to do this. And I said, you're crazy. And so we did. Ended up, he convinced me, and we started flipping houses. And with a team he met in South Florida,
Hmm.
Miami-Dade County. We were hard money lenders. That worked well. I did it for a couple of years, 10 through 12 probably, and then ended up relocating to Houston to find a W-2 job, and came down here as an executive for Baylor College of Medicine. At
Okay.
that time, I attended a lifestyles expo here in Houston, and I heard a guy by the name of Brad Sumrock talk, and
Hmm.
all about multifamily, and I just
Yeah.
became enthralled with the concept that I could buy a multi-million-dollar asset with a non-recourse loan. Which, if you look at anything else, buying a
Yeah.
business, a franchise, it's all
Yeah.
recourse. And I really didn't want to jeopardize any of the savings I had accumulated, for
Yeah.
past years. So that's the nutshell of it. Is I got into
Yeah.
multifamily looking for something else, and then once I just set up a very detailed plan. I'm going to get
Hmm.
out of the corporate world by 23,
Hmm.
and so I set about that path, just investing passively, learning the process,
Yeah.
meeting deal sponsors. I started out in lifestyles. I ended up in Sumrock's deals and
Yeah.
Sumrock's organization, and I was in Rod Khleif's for several years as well.
Hmm. Yep.
So I got to see
That's where we met, actually. I think we met at a Rod Khleif event, many, many moons ago.
yep, and great. They're all great. They all have advantages. Encourage the listeners to plug in if they feel they need to.
Hmm.
But it's just a great way to learn. And I always say it's like going to church. You're hanging around equally minded people,
Yeah.
people that want to be in the real estate business. So they're more active if they're there than your neighbor or somebody you met passively at a coffee bar. So that's what I did. I
Awesome.
educated myself,
Hmm.
started investing my own money, got involved in several deals, had some
Hmm.
success, got the fever, I'll call it,
Yeah.
and wanted to move into the general partnership side. So I did my
Mhm.
first one in 18. Fast forward to today, I think I'm in about, I don't know, I'm a general partner in about 1,300 doors across the Sun Belt.
Awesome.
Well,
Well,
any
let's
number is good in it, whether you're 100 or five or
Yeah, I think the better number is, what percent ownership in those 1,300 doors. I'm at about 13, 1,400 as well. I've got some that I'm in complete control of where my total ownership in the doors is, 10 to 20%. And I've got some where I'm a role player, like a pinch hitter in a baseball game. But yeah, it all adds up.
I think that's great for your listening audience to realize you don't have to do it all yourself. And as you and
Mhm.
I know it,
Yeah.
it's a team concept will carry you a long way. I'm similar.
Yeah.
I'm the lead partner in a couple, and I'm a KP in a couple, and I'm a capital raiser in a couple, and but I still get an equity share in all of them. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's a good reason some people criticize door count, right? People who are just saying door count because your 1,300 doors and my 1,400 doors aren't 100% owned by us. But,
and there can be a big difference in your income for 1,300 doors versus my income for 1,300 doors based upon those
correct.
roles. And I
Absolutely.
had a new
Absolutely.
person ask that today. Well, why is all the door count important? What's that mean for income? As you know, it's
It's
very
it's
different.
not correlated. Yeah. I mean, I do make a lot more money on the properties that I have a bigger share in. I mean, that's obvious.
You do
And
more
I
work
think,
too.
yeah, I do a whole lot more work. I spend,
Yeah.
I would say each property that I'm the lead sponsor on, I'm probably spending several hours per week per property. And, I also have a couple of employees
Mhm.
and I have partners in all those deals. And I do get the partners working on stuff as well. But still, yeah, it's a lot more work as opposed to somebody who I'm pulling out my air quotes for this for people who are not watching the video who just raise capital. And air quotes are out there because everybody knows you can't just raise capital. But for people whose job is mostly finished by the time we hit the closing table, I mean, KPs are an example of that as well. I mean, once they sign the loan, most of their role is finished, but it's a different thing and a different way of looking at it. If the value you're bringing to a partnership is over once you close, you can get into a lot more partnerships and you're not having that extra burden of operating after the closing, right? But and consequently, you don't make as much, but I'm doing a whole lot of work on the properties that I'm managing. And consequently, when those things close, sell and, presumably make a lot of money, I'm getting a big chunk of that too. So,
But I think your audience, I mean, they have to understand those different roles. And
yeah.
the idea is to make money on multiple aspects, some that are time consuming, some that are very non-time consuming. And the more mixture you have, the better.
Yeah, we both have coaching programs. So I'm just curious. I'll share kind of what I recommend to my coaching students, and I just want to see what your thoughts are, how you're approaching this one. So I recommend for the average person coming into this business to learn how to raise capital first. Come into a deal, and once again, there are some SEC or the broker dealer laws that we have to make sure that we're compliant with. But come into a deal where, you're performing a small role and learning how to raise capital. And then do that 3 or 4 times. And then if you want to be the lead sponsor, you can jump into that
Yeah.
lead sponsor role. That's my baseline recommendation to anybody coming through the door of my coaching program. But just curious, your thoughts on that and if you see the word differently.
No, I think that's great advice. Your coaching program's a little more mature than mine is right now, but that's fine. I think you could easily say what you said. I think that's probably the most difficult for a newbie to consider is capital raising because
Mhm.
they think they don't have money or they don't have friends or they don't have a Rolodex, well, a
Mhm.
contact list, I should say. Rolodex is an old term. Uh,
I
contact.
still use Rolodex, and yes, I don't think I've seen an actual Rolodex in decades. So,
Uh,
but yes.
we're of the same genre then, but that's difficult. I don't know that there's a perfect place to start. I think I try to get to know the students the best and figure out what they really want to do. But I
Hmm.
think you hit on a really important part there as a capital raiser or any other aspect. You're
Hmm.
part of a team.
Yeah.
And so it's networking, it's networking, it's networking and finding people that you want to associate with that have the same character and values because that's difficult to find. And, a lot of people want to, and I'm sure you have them, they want to start out with a duplex or a quad or something like that.
Hmm.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you and I know there's as much work in a quad or a 10-plex as there is a 100 unit.
Yeah.
And a lot more return on the bigger unit. So you might as
Yeah.
well. contemplate finding a partner and jumping in.
There's good reasons to go both directions, you know. If you can find the right partner, you know, if you find a partner that's well established, you could easily get into a 100 unit
Mhm.
apartment complex where you're a minor role player. But for a lead sponsor, you know, if you're lead sponsor, I think it might be better going the other direction where you start small. But there's people who are able to go bigger faster. But anyway,
Well, if nothing else, it's starting on that for the new person is thinking about joint venturing versus a syndication. So
yeah.
joint venturing is you're going to have one, two, maybe three or four partners that all have pretty much an equal share and share the workload, and but it's much
Mhm.
more hands-on
Yep.
than the syndication where those numbers get much bigger and the roles
Yeah.
become there's a dominant player and other
Mhm.
bit players. So
Yeah, I think that's wise. I have a partner that I've partnered with dozens of times. We have one joint venture that we're both in, and it was very similar to the situation you just mentioned. I think it's a perfect example of a good way to go forward. It was a small property. It was a $3 million purchase. You know, it was a coaching student in one of the programs that I
okay.
was, you know, kind of hanging on the outskirts of. She originally came to us because she needed a loan guarantor. You know, KP, you know, I
Right.
use those terms interchangeably. More for the audience, Randy, I know you know those terms, but you know, we started looking at the deal, and between my partner and I, we both had money to invest. The person who found the deal had some money to invest, and I'm like, I know one other guy that's, you know, doing a 1031. We put that deal together with four people. I think it's a perfect first deal for somebody if you can find the right partners to help fund it, because you don't have to worry about investor reports. You don't have to worry about, you know, I mean, you have to keep the partnership happy, but keeping you plus three happy is a lot easier than
You plus 25.
yeah, I just brought 50 or 100 investors in this deal and I've got to make them all happy, you know. So,
You hit on another key element there, though,
mhm,
which is the advantage of knowing your in your coaching program or your mentoring
mhm.
program, you were able to help that person facilitate the network that they may not have had, that they just exponentially exploded with your assistance in that coaching mentoring program to pull some pieces together to make the deal happen. So,
Oh yeah. You mentioned two big names in coaching. You know, I'll mention another. Michael Blanc was the program
mhm.
I was in, and he always preached the law of the first deal. And I mean, in that case, just to take your point one step further, you know, we helped this individual get her first deal, and you know, now she's a player in the game and not, you know,
Yeah.
not on the sidelines or, you know, trying to get into the game. So big deals there. So
Yeah, she's a legitimate person in the broker's eyes and the lender's eyes, and versus the person who's never done a deal and has a lot of aspirations. So,
yeah.
welcome to the club. She's in.
She's in. She's in. And incidentally, she's doing a fabulous job managing the property as well. I mean, we have a third party property manager, but yeah, she's doing a fabulous job. So ended up being a win across the board. So let's talk more about you real quick. I guess you are in the spotlight. When you first started doing deals as a GP, what were the biggest challenges that you had getting into it?
Well, I think, yeah, it's as you said, first and foremost, it's the law of the first deal. That's the monumental one. My first deal was partnering with three other guys that I
Hmm.
really didn't know so well, but I really just wanted a deal. I just wanted to do it. And I
Hmm.
remember it was a 139 unit.
Okay.
We bought it in 2018, built in 1965
Okay.
in Beaumont, Texas, with flat roofs and chiller boilers. Now,
Okay. Yes.
for your listening audience, when somebody offers you that deal, run from it.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people have criteria, no flat roofs, no chillers, no boilers. Why would you say that? Just out of
Well, just
curiosity.
because the
Yeah,
story continues. So I remember I
yeah.
had a colleague, friend slash mentor said,
Mhm.
Randy, don't do the deal. Don't do
Yep.
the deal. So we had problems with both the roofs and the chiller boiler system
Mhm.
was, in the middle of winter in Texas when the heating goes out. And the problem with a chiller boiler system is when it goes out for all 139
Everywhere.
units.
All or nothing.
Yeah,
Yep.
it doesn't just go out for one or two units like a
Hmm.
traditional system would.
Yep.
So you have big problems, but we were,
Yeah.
and it's really difficult to find maintenance people that can work in a chiller
Hmm.
boiler system these days. I mean,
Hmm.
chiller boiler is still the most efficient way to heat and cool,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
they're still in use in a lot of commercial high rises and office buildings and stuff like that because of that reason. But
Yeah.
they're just hard to find somebody to work on. So we had a
Hmm.
fire on the unit on the
Hmm.
property 2 months into
Yeah.
28 units burnt down, and So I got cast into the, I'll say the asset management role
Mhm.
slash property management role. We fired the property manager, got a new one, hired a new leasing person. So
Mhm.
I got indoctrinated pretty fast. And the thing I take away from that was my buy box just today would not include chiller boilers.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah, and
mean it can't, but
I wouldn't I would tell people to know what they're getting into. And personally, our buy box, we've done what a lot of lenders and insurance companies have done. Actually, we've kind of done this because lenders insurance. I don't want to buy another 60s product or another 70s product. Yeah, unless there's a good reason, just because you have old systems.
yeah.
Your chiller boilers, you buy something built in the 60s, you got a 60-year-old chiller boiler system, and there's a good chance you're going to have some major problems with it.
I can tell you a different story though. Fast forward to in
Yep.
22, bought a 199 unit in Tucson, Arizona that has flat roofs. And it was a 69 build. But to your point of know what you're getting into, and this kicking butt and taking prisoners today, that deal.
Mhm.
We've been able to make room improvements and increasing rent sometimes $300 a month.
Nice.
So but the difference there in those units is both of them had very, and I should say the Beaumont, Texas one, the first one, fast forward, we sold it after 21 months and were able to exit it and double investor money. So it worked out very well.
Yeah.
The Tucson, Arizona property I'm still in, but the similarities between the two is they both had long-term prior owners
Hmm.
who had lost track of the market and
Hmm.
were, I mean, if you can raise the rent $300,
Yes.
somebody lost a lot of opportunity lost there for several years prior to that.
Yes, absolutely. There's one thing, one apartment that I refer to frequently. When we got it under contract, it had a sign out front with the rents listed on the sign. I went into Google Maps and just kind of went back in history, and that sign had been there for at least 3 years. And you look at the rent roll, and every single rent was exactly what was listed on the sign. And you go into
Wow.
the Google Maps history, and you go to the street view, and you go 5 years back, and there's a different sign with a different rent point on there, And so it looks like, this particular owner, just to your point, every 3 or 4 years would adjust his rents and put a new sign up. So yeah, I mean, when you see stuff like that, owners that are a little bit out of touch, and they're typically long-term owners, and they're typically kind of, I see a lot of DIYers, in that position, the do-it-yourself type person, or they hand it off to a property manager and they're making enough. But yeah, that's a
Exactly.
total.
They hand it off the property manager and they've got it paid for or nearly paid for, or they got
Mhm.
tremendously old fixed rate debt on it with a little balance. And forgive me, they were these two examples, they were fat, dumb, and happy.
Mhm. Yeah, and I honestly, I want to be fat, dumb, and happy someday, but yeah, I
Well, I
mean,
am fat, but I'm working on the dumb and happy.
I've got fat and dumb taken care of already. Just I got to get that happy.
There you
No,
go.
yeah, we bought one about 6 months ago from a guy who'd owned it for 25 years, 24 units. So a little bit on the smaller end, but he used a residential real estate agent to sell it.
Wow.
So you kind of scratch your head on that one, and it's like, does he really know what this apartment's worth? Does the owner know what this apartment's worth? Answer is probably not. Does a residential real estate agent know what it's worth? Probably not. And so anyway, we have a really healthy spread between what we paid for the price and what's on the appraisal report. So good for us.
Well, yeah, good for you. And there's knowing the market and there's just being steadfast and knowing that there are exceptions to every rules. I said
Yeah,
chiller boilers isn't in my buy box, but there are exceptions to every rule.
yeah,
So if it's a good
yeah.
enough deal.
I would say for the new person, don't get into too much brand new on your first deal. I think that's key. Don't get into too much brand new on your first deal. If you've never worked with a chiller boiler system, maybe that better not be your first time in there. But if you got a lot of experience, with certain things related to multifamily, you might be able to handle a little bit more than a guy like me who had three single family homes and a military career when I jumped in. But yeah, I would say don't get into too much new on your first deal.
And I really encourage even some of the students. We started a passive course too for people because the more I talk to potential students, many I find out really just want to get in by being a passive first. And that's fine too. It's a great way to invest some money, learn, I should say, to make some money and learn
Mhm.
along the way if you've
Yeah.
got a longer runway. It's the way I started. And I know a lot of people have done that. Just start out passively and you find out from different sponsors, what you like and don't like,
Mhm.
and go from there that you're comfortable.
Yeah, if I had the finances, I would have done it. When I started out, most of my net worth was locked into a retirement plan, and so I didn't have a ton of cash. But if I could rewrite things, I would have invested a couple of times passively before doing it actively. But where I was, I had some money, I had the opportunity of, or I had the choice of invest in somebody else's deal and have no money for my first deal,
Right.
or save mine for my first deal. And so
Go from there.
I don't think either one's a wrong choice. It depends on where you want to get to. In my case, I looked at a couple of deals investing passively, but I ultimately decided that I need to find partners and therefore I need to bring value to the table.
Right.
And part of the way I could bring value to the table is earnest money deposit, And so the first deal I got under contract, I made sure I was paying the earnest money deposit. So I wasn't asking partners, hey, do you want to partner with me? And by the way, we got to pay
Awesome.
40,000 next week. So anyway, that was my experience.
Well, again, that shows you there's no one right way, right?
Yeah.
For each of your clients, students, and mine, there's no one right way. It's very up to you and how fast you want to go and how much you want to work and how much you want to make.
Yeah, and that's the fun part, In my coaching program, I've got a wide range of different abilities coming in, and part of the fun part is sitting down with them, figuring out where they're at and building a plan for them, a customized plan, my default plan is, raise money for somebody else, but I've had two coaching clients that have come to the table saying, I want to find one or two properties for myself before I start syndicating. And I think that's wise, smart if you can do that. But
You have
everybody
the
has,
wherewithal. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you got the money, if you're able to buy, with your own cash, a 12-plex or a 20 unit, that's an option for you. But
Well,
that
that will certainly
wasn't,
teach them the power
yeah.
of syndication, and they'll love syndication where they don't have to do it all after.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do love the power of syndication. I mean, there's so much there, but yeah, so much goodness there, especially anybody can come in and learn how to syndicate, and you don't need a lot of resources. You need hustle and you need the ability to find partners. If you've got those two, you can syndicate, and you don't
Well,
have to, yeah.
I'm sure you can think of too. I can think of a number of people that entered the field of the game about the same time I have and have just catapulted many times over me. And that's fine because, as you said, they had much more hustle than I did. We're at it full time and able to take some more risk than I wanted to take. And, that's fine. I know others that started the
Mhm.
same time I did and have been out of the space for 5 or 6 years already. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this current market is going to cull a lot of people and create new opportunities for a whole new generation.
I think a lot of people have already, hit the doors, the exit doors already. You said 2018 is when you first started the
First
gym.
JP. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, mine was 2019. I started the coaching program that I was in 18. So we're roughly the same generation. Now here's something that I will say about, raising capital is it's a very transferable skill,
Mhm.
And when I started, there were a couple of guys that branded themselves as capital raisers. And when multifamily churned, I guess commercial real estate for the most part all churned at the same time. Industrial is still doing pretty well, but they were able to take those capital raising skills and apply them to any other investment. It's like, okay, well, now I'm doing oil and gas. Now I'm doing,
Car
I got
wash,
yeah,
ATM.
car washes, now I'm doing, something else. So, I mean, there are a lot of skills that you can learn doing this that you can transfer to other things. Buying a multifamily, I mean, the process is very similar for every other type of commercial real estate, So, but yeah, I think it's easiest to illustrate with the people who learn how to raise money. You learn how to raise money. I mean, you can work in any equity firm, any investment opportunity like the ones we have.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Be it self-storage, mobile home parks, or you name the asset class, that is very transferable. You can learn
Yeah.
underwriting, you can learn broker relationships, I know pretty easily.
Yeah.
But those relationships that you have established on the capital raising side will stick with you for a long time. And hopefully along the way, you develop some successes and have repeat customers. And
Mhm.
as we know, that snowballs and the exponential growth of that is
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah, and it does happen exponentially. I mean, it really, really does. So, well, awesome. Well, I just looked at the clock. I think we've been talking for a good 35 minutes here. So probably time to start wrapping up. And I got a couple of questions I always ask
Okay.
everybody when we do wrap up. First one, we talked a lot about what you have done. What's next for you?
Great question. What's next for me? So I've got several irons in the fire, as they say. But beyond real estate, but on the real estate side, I'm just going to keep on keeping on with the syndication. And though I'm becoming much more narrow in my buy box and my relationships that I've had, I've seen too many people now that have suffered the ills of variable rate debt. And
Hmm.
so that and grow the coaching business. I, like you, just want to give back to people. There's been so many people, Brian, that have built into your life and my life, real estate wise. And I never thought I could do it. And not that I'm a rock star, but I've had some success and
Hmm.
others can too. It's the thing I love about real estate.
Yeah.
Someone told me a long time ago, Randy, you don't have to have a lot of creative brain cells to do this. Just
Hmm.
follow the playbook of those that have gone before you.
Hmm.
Just follow the playbook. I mean, from Donald Trump on down, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not like heart surgery or rocket science. So
Yeah, I know, I know. Or if you really want to, see if people are paying attention, you tell them rocket surgery, but it's not like rocket surgery or brain science or anything. Yeah, I just you know,
yep.
I got a lot of dad jokes, I mean, sometimes my dad jokes come out when I'm talking with, adults. But next question. What
Okay.
advice would you give somebody who is just starting out on their multifamily journey?
I'm like a lot of people and think, I spent a lot of money getting the college degree and advanced degrees, MBA, CPA, blah, blah, blah. It's not
Hmm.
worth anything to me today, but it makes you very risk adverse. It makes you thinking that there's somebody on the corporate side out there that's going to be your white knight. And
Hmm.
that, if I work really hard, it'll be recognized and I can climb the corporate ladder and retire.
Hmm.
And I'm not criticizing that because I did it. And
Yeah.
I'm living pretty comfortable today. But I would tell my younger self or somebody else, get started earlier and just
Yeah.
get in the game. As a
Hmm.
passive investor, do a house hack if
Yep.
you're really young, buy an Airbnb or just
Yeah.
just get in the game and
Get in the
stay
game.
there for many years.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. Get in the game early, and when you're talking about 18-year-old Randy, I was thinking about 25-year-old Elena and 22-year-old Katie, my daughters, and what advice would I be giving to them? I'm telling them get good at something, very similar to you. My 25-year-old has a bachelor's of nursing, making a really good living. My 22, well, compared to other 25-year-olds, and my 22-year-old, has a really good high paying job, for someone her age. But yeah, I'll take one step further. I'm telling them something similar. Get really good at what you do so you can increase your income. And then once you increase that income, you're going to be able to start investing in more,
Diversify.
more and more and more. Exactly. So
You want to develop multiple income streams.
exactly. And that's
Your day job, your the stock
Mhm.
market, your 401ks, but you need
Absolutely.
and I think it's even more prevalent for that generation than it was for you and I.
Yeah.
Because when we graduated, I think the corporate gig was, at least I didn't know anybody that was an entrepreneur. But
Yeah.
today there are so many, with side hustles and people in the gig economy that
Yeah.
it's so much more acceptable and so much more doable today than it
Yeah.
was when we got started.
Yeah. But I mean, when I entered the workforce, I mean, pensions were mostly phasing out.
Mhm.
But you could still, there were still several jobs where you get in now, they still offered pensions, and our parents' generation, I mean, they were all work for one company, get the pension, and that was the retirement plan for a lot of people. But I think things have shifted dramatically over the years. Not a
Yeah.
lot of the companies are offering pension plans. I know the
Yeah.
federal government still does because that's what I'm on right now. But yeah.
Count your blessings.
Yeah. Every time, I was military. Every time somebody says we've got to save the military pension system, I scratch my head and think, oh, geez, I don't want anybody to touch my pension system. But the idea that, I retired in my early 40s and I'm going to get a paycheck every month for the rest of my life, man,
I
wow.
think you're the one exception. The military is the one exception, not you singly, but the military.
Yeah.
I never served. I
Yeah.
got the flag back over here. My father served. I'm going to say you deserve it, Brian.
Yeah, I say that I deserve it, but of course, but yeah, just kind of looking at, I ended up winning pretty. I think it ends up being a pretty decent exchange in some ways. But yeah, I mean my pension, not anybody can look it up, but I'm making about 75,000 a year, and I've got 40 years of life expectation ahead of me. So anyway, it's just one of these things where, looking that's not available to people anymore. It really isn't.
Yeah, that's right.
So whether it's good economically or not, I'll stop talking about that. But
Well,
yeah,
I'm a finance guy. I would simply say, yes, that was great for you, and it's great for somebody's in it today. But if you're looking at the pure dollar side of it, you can exponentially better
yeah.
that by investing in real
Mhm.
estate.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I look back, there's somebody I think he was in the Warriors program, somebody we both know. I won't mention him by name, but he got out of the military with 15 years of service, and you have to hit 20 to get your pension. And I remember scratching my head saying, why? Why would you do that? You're giving up a pension, And incidentally, I was right about the 16 years, service mark when he got out. And, his response, and I can see it now, his response was, I've started something that's starting to make a lot of money. And if I hustle for the next 4 years, I'm going to create more passive income than that pension's going to provide me. And he has. And looking back at me, I didn't have that confidence at my 16-year mark. Otherwise, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I
Good.
could, yeah, knowing what I know now, if I could turn back time at my 15-year mark, I would have done the same thing. But all right, we hit the last two questions, or two of the last three questions. Last question for you: how can people learn more about you?
Well, first, let me say, my friend, it's been a pleasure to be back here again.
Yeah,
Let's not wait 2 or 3 years to do it again.
absolutely.
But thanks again. Randy Langenderfer, a couple of ways you can get me at my website, which is invest-ark, investark.com.
Mm-hmm.
There's a contact me page on there. Multifamily Maestros, all one word for coaching. Love to chat with anybody about anything real estate.
Nice.
I'm sure you'll put the stuff in the show notes here with
Absolutely.
email address, and call me
Hmm.
on my cell. That's fine too.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Well, we'll make sure all that's in the show notes, and anybody looking to get in touch with Randy, whether it's coaching, whether it's investing, or you just want to have a nice talk with him like I just did, give him a holler.
Yeah,
So
it's like you said, it's giving back. So I'm sure you do a lot of free consulting as well to people and help them out.
I've been known to do a lot of free consulting. So yes, absolutely. But
Comes back in dividends though, in the long run. So
in the long run, it does. The golden rule is golden, in a lot of ways. I think you could selfishly apply the golden rule because it does better. That's the do unto others,
right,
as
have
you'd
them
have
do
them.
with you.
Yeah, treat others as you want to be treated is a different way of saying it. But you could selfishly adhere to the golden rule because it does benefit you. It benefits you just as much as it benefits the people you interact with. But everybody listening, you want to talk with Randy, head to the show notes. You want to learn about Randy, head to the show notes. You want to continue the discussion online, reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the one best place to get in touch with yours truly. So, Randy, thanks for coming on the show. And yeah, it's not going to be 2 years before we bring you back on.
Have a great day, my friend. Talk
Thank
soon.
you.